Tartu College Estonian Museum Canada väliseesti muuseum Vemu. I'm Piret Norhani, the chief archivist of the museum, and I'm happy to see you all here, some familiar faces and some new faces, which tells me that there are quite many Arne's friends we probably haven't met yet, which is great. Arne Roosman was a radiant personality and to the very end, and artist with a youthful soul and eye. Residents of Toronto have encountered his work while strolling along Bloor Street through the murals at Tartu College, which since 2016 have adorned the center of the Estonian community and tell city dwellers the story of our cultural heritage. Arne was a well-known artist and highly respected artist in our Estonian community here, and a long-time member of the Society of Estonian Artists in Toronto, EKKT. But here in Toronto, it is perhaps even difficult for us to fully grasp the significant role he played in Bancroft's cultural heritage landscape. In 2014, Arne shared his stories in his book, A Touch of Arsenic, Sketching the Past, which was published both in Estonian and English. And as befits an artist, his recollections took shape not only as text, but also as drawings. That's the English version of the book. Late last autumn, a new memoir about Arne was completed. It was a sunny day. Its author, Nate Smelle, a journalist from Bancroft, joined us here today. And Nate spent hundreds of hours with Arne through 6 years, I think, yes. Right? And to record not only Arne's vivid and richly textured life story, but also his views on our turbulent world. And it is this book that we are launching here today. And Nate, I wrote the article about this book launch in Bancroft, and Nate recalls his first encounter there with Arne's art as follows, quote, "As I focused on his works during the studio tour, it became clear that Arne was far more than just a prolific and talented artist. Of course, we can find meaning in any work of art, but in Arne's pieces I saw a depth and had never experienced before. Each of his works not only told a story, but also inspired an endless chain of questions." You can see some of Arne's works here. As you see, they are on sale. Thanks, Jaak, for organizing this sale here. And part of the money, if you decide to buy something, goes to support Vemu, for which Vemu is already very grateful. Thank you. How can one capture times gone by? How much can we trust our own memory, or what has been told by others? At the Vemu's Writers Club, we stumble upon those questions again and again. In his book, Arne sums up this dilemma as follows. Nostalgia comes into play, and that which appears to be true could be false, but it would be false to assume that there is no truth in it. Allowing that one's memory is tainted, it gives the artist in me great license to caricature the events and the players who contributed to what I feel is a worthwhile effort. Enough said, let the pictures speak, end of quote. And now, paraphrasing Arne, I will include my brief introduction here with the words, enough said, let us now invite Arne's daughter Rebecca Mackay and the author of the book, Nate Smelle, to speak about Arne and his latest book. Let's celebrate one of the brightest talents of our community. Thanks for coming, thanks for this interesting book, and we are looking forward to your talk.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Nate and Dad, for this incredibly wonderful, poignant project. There's a lot of key words that I was going to mention here. With the book, there's keywords of love and friendship, of kindness, justice and democracy and compassion and peace, versus Nazism, versus dictatorship, fascism, totalitarianism, oligarchy, greed, and war. In a way, one of the big questions is what makes up a sunny day, even in the darkest of times, and how do we resonate with that, even on a personal level? And this book, in a way, explores the themes of deception, especially by way of political gaslighting, crimes against humanity, violence, hate, and encourages us to confront our own moral compass. And I recall when we spoke about all these topics at the first book launch, we over a few years after it was over and closed of the evening, we kind of looked into all this very, very forensically between all of us around the table drinking beer, and Arne himself became extremely animated at this point and quite ready to probably carry on all night trying to treat all of us there trying to make the world to rights. And anyway, so Nate, with that, with all these topi, how did the book actually come into being in that respect?
Yeah, as a journalist, you meet a lot of people. Every week it's a new group of people, and reporting up in the Bancroft area, it's cottage country, so that changes season to season. But Arne's kind of a local legend. Like, everybody knows Arne. It's like you go to as he got older and I started taking him grocery shopping and things, like it would take an hour to pick up a jug of milk because he'd be stopped so many times in the grocery store, someone wanting to talk with Arne. And we actually met in 2014. And I covered one of his art shows, and we, hit it off right away. But he was still producing like a lot of art and doing a lot of shows, and I was busy as a journalist. So we never got to really nurture that friendship, even though, we were always friendly and, it was nice to see each other. But then it was December of 2019, Arne called me up and said he'd been working on this project, and he had read some of my writing on Donald Trump and all the mess in the States, and he was really appreciated what I'd written, and so he said, I've got a project I think you'll like to check out if you want to come over. And I went to his place in Coe Hill, and he had this maybe 20-30 drawings of this like toddler tyrant, like that was just throwing tantrums and trying to take over the world, and with just this his hilarious satire of the very, as we're seeing, like, very dangerous politician, down south. And right away, like, that connection, like, we just started talking, and, I was writing an article about the piece and about his work. And usually it takes maybe an hour tops to interview somebody. And it was 5 hours. We sat down, and he just had so much to say. The interview was done within less than an hour, but we were actually just sitting there, just chatting. He's, telling me these stories about his childhood, and I wouldn't say I glazed over, but there was so much information he was giving me that I couldn't take it all in at once. And he casually mentioned something like, seeing a woman hung in the streets, or a child thrown into a fire. Horrific things. And like, I went home and I just thought to myself, did I hear that right? Like, and I needed to know more. So he planted these seeds, and I ended up going back the next week, and another 5-hour sit down, sit together, and we just kept digging and digging. And initially, I had been working on the book for a long time, and I was thinking, maybe Arne would be a character in the book, one character. But after 3 or 4 meetings, I realized, no, this is Arne's project. This is Arne's story. His story needs to be told. So, 5 years later, we finally had it ready for the publishers, and after several rewrites, because like the world kept changing. Like if you read the first chapter of the book, we talk about like, we thought the project was done several times, but then something major would happen that would alter something in the story, and it was like, we just found that, okay, rather than rush it out, get it out, let's take our time with this and make it something really special. So yeah, it evolved naturally just out of our, as our friendship grew and our connection got deeper.
I think the text definitely reflects the closeness of how the two of you, just worked together with it. But also, I mean, the whole idea about experience. I think to me, and my opinion may be colored by the fact that my closeness to my father, to my family, and my grandparents, because they're all in here.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, the one through line throughout all this, among other through lines, of course, but the strongest one to me was the connectivity of the glue. The glue that holds this book together is all really, at the end of the day, about love, and how even in the most extenuating of circumstances, it's the one thing that binds us all. It's the one thing that even, I suppose that can be what is represented by a sunny day, because no matter how difficult things become, that is the one thing that Dad was saying how he needs to hang on to, because otherwise he would not survive. But I feel in my heart that sunny day is that love, that always knowing that there's a goodness in people, that good people, of the power of what good people do for all of us. And I think that my father's experience speaks for many, many people, especially people of families in this room who have had similar experiences in their own families, being the diaspora and having parents who were displaced. And so, in a sense, I think it's very timely, and how it not only just resonates with the emergence of Trump when you started the book, but also what has come of it now.
Yeah, we. It's something I mentioned to you before, was that like we had this exchange that went on for over half a decade. So if there was something that happened major in the news, Arne'd be on the phone, or I'd be on the phone with him, and okay, let's get together this weekend and chat, or like when are you free, and so it was this constant, like we were. We had to like share things with each other. So it's for me, it's still, I watch the news. I'm a news junkie. I watch it too much, and every time something happens, I think of Arne. I gotta tell Arne this. It's like, oh yeah, we can't have that exchange anymore. But he made me pay attention on a different level. Like I mentioned in the book, like Arne would always give me homework. It was like I had a teacher, a friend, a brother, and like a grandfather. There's just all of these layers to our relationship. And he said he left it. He had a basket for me at the front door, and he said, "That's your homework." He said, "Those are yours. Anything in that basket you can take." And he always would. He was an avid reader, so he had maybe 20 magazine subscriptions to like these academic journals.
Was it like New Yorker or Times Literary Supplement and all those?
Yeah, Harper's, like all
Harper's,
these,
yeah.
all of these, like, and so he would send me home, and then he'd say, "Oh, make sure you read closely, because I've made some notes for you." So I'd have to go through the magazines, like page by page, carefully looking for these notes. He'd fold the corner over, and he'd point. He'd always find it. He made it easy for me, but it was just it blew my mind, because Arne was like very raging against the .com all the time. Like he was not a fan of the internet or technology, and like so. And I'm not either, but I was definitely more than him because of like I just
It's your work.
It's my work. I have to. So with that, it just amazed me because I would be up to date on the latest breaking news, and I would share that with him. I'd bring him videos from YouTube or like from the different news channels, but then he'd have these magazines that were related to exactly what I was going to show him. And the in-print journalism was so much deeper, and so Arne's awareness was just unbelievable, right? It was really unbelievable to, as a journalist, to have a conversation with him. There was never like I was always the least informed one at the table because he was so well read, and he would relate it to other things. So when you go through the book, you'll find like quotes and segments of articles and things that were, I'd say almost all of them came from the magazines or the books that Arne would share with me during our encounters. So we started to realize as we were going through this that like history was kind of repeating itself, right? Like we're seeing these things, and like there's one story I spoke about before, and there was a neo-Nazi group in Florida, and they'd occupied a bridge, and they were, hurling and pushing people and hurling racial slurs at people that walked by, and it was just so aggressive, the video. And I took it, I was at Arne's, and we were having a conversation, and I showed it to him, and he just stopped, and he put his drink down. He stopped, and he just shook his head, and he teared up, and he's like, these are the bastards that hung the woman in Schwerin. These are the same people. And it was right away. I didn't have to say anything. That was the energy. He saw the energy of these people today, and instantly it took him back to that moment when he was watching the moment.
Yeah, he called me he phoned me about that incident. I was in Scotland, of course, but he phoned me about that, and we spent a long time on the phone talking about those sorts of developments. And of course, at home we have our own BNP version, and also the Reform Party. And luckily, it's not that popular north of the border where I live, thank God. But it's interesting how these like in a text conversation the other day when you had expressed how the world needs to face up to a lot of hard truths in order to save our future, but those hard truths, they're almost, in a way, I'm looking at this and what I'm reading here parallels with so much that is going on now, and how, like you're saying, how one incident can trigger a childhood memory that is still so fresh in the mind due to the trauma of witnessing what was going on as just a little boy when these things were happening, when he was in Schwerin, and seeing it again. It not only just brings it back, but also I think it makes it even makes it doubly more difficult, because you're looking at this as from my father's eyes. Oh my God, dear God, it's happening again. Yeah. And you never thought it would happen again.
Yeah.
And that kind of memory and forgetting is like we create a mental archive of these things within our own mind, that certain events eventually resurface them again, and they become, rather than memory anymore, they become part of our present, our past. The past and present are intermingled this way.
Yeah. That we definitely saw that, like where, there's something with that instance on the bridge, like it was like these moments where it's like it would trigger something in Arne's memory where, even just seeing like Elon Musk's do the salute, right? Like, it's like he saw that and he just, again, shake his head like, what are we doing here? Like, this is the richest, man in the world. and we're allowing him to just do this, like, you know, and still supporting him. Like it's like something that to me I found really inspiring about Arne was there's a piece in the book. It's about when he experienced seeing Pablo Picasso's Guernica painting in Sweden in the 50s. I think it was 57 maybe, or 54. But he mentioned how, like, you know, if he had another 100 years, that he would use his artistic abilities to be an activist and to fight war, you know, to promote peace. Like that was his wish, was that, like, you know, and he said, you know, he believed his work was always about beauty and peace and love and like mythology and like this. He's a storyteller, right? Which was why I think our conversations were so long, because we just start telling stories back and forth. And but with his artwork, he was able to tell a story that, like, kind of hits everybody in a very unique way. And you know, when he described the impact that Guernica had on him, even though he said, I'm not really a Picasso fan, he said, but the impact of that painting just changed his life and his direction as an artist. So he says now he would be more, you know, while he always tried to use his art as activism, he said he would be more in your face with it. He wanted it to actually make a difference.
When you look at some of his old pen and ink drawings, like the ones that he did while he was still in Sweden, of, you know, just of people, and there is quite a satirical quality to them.
Yeah.
You know, about sort of, you know, the strangeness of the human condition at times. Yeah.
Well, that was like his book, Touching the Great Again, was his satirical approach to Donald Trump in the first in 2020, and it was like, you know, reading. It's like he said, like, satire is our best weapon. He says he's like, I'm a pacifist. I don't want to fight anybody. I don't want to start a war or fight in a war. He's like, but I don't mind, you know, fighting these bastards and, you know, making jokes out of them. So it's like you see, and I think we see that now, like, you know, with the cancellation of people like, you know, Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert, you know, all of these things where when you poke a little bit too much fun at these types of bullies, it triggers something, right? It triggers something where the only thing they know how to do is be violent and to try to, like, ruin everything that you are, or something, you know. But you know, that's I think where more of us can, you know, we can all kind of use our own voices in a way to you know, to point these kinds of things out, right? It's easy to remain silent, but Arne and I would laugh because it's like technically he was part of the silent generation, is what they call it, right? So
yeah. Well, I mean, this kind of bullying. I mean, when you think about the satirists back in the day in ancient Rome, you know, Juvenal and Martial and all these people who were very, very frightened and very scared about, okay, how can I make fun of these people without the emperor coming and chopping my head off and stabbing me in the street one night? And, you know, so you've got this, you know, we have this climate of never-ending cycles of these kinds of authoritarian regimes happening, satire is coming out of them, emerging from them. But also, you know, Jimmy Kimmel was saying, I might get assassinated. They are actually putting their lives on the line.
Yeah, it's dangerous to use your voice when these types of people are in control. And that was something like Arne was just, he couldn't be silent about it. Like, he had to, whatever was the most important thing happening in the world, he always wanted to talk about. Like, there's very little small talk with Arne, right? He'd sit down, oh, beautiful, sunny day, yeah, okay, now right into it. And you'd be there for, you know, like we would be just back and forth for hours. And, you know, it's something where I think it's rare to have those, when you find people like that where you connect and you're able to share and talk about these deeper things, the important things. I think it's good to nurture those relationships, because like something Arne taught me was just like to value our time more. Like we have only so much of it, right? And it's like I think of all of the things. Some of the questions in the book are questions I never got to ask Arne at the end. Right? I exchanged things with him, and I would leave him questions. He would give me answers, often in the form of a riddle or a poem or something where it made me really kind of try to figure it out. And
He likes doing that.
Yeah. Or you'd send him like I got a couple. There's some questions here. I'll read them. It was we're talking about a peaceful place the one day, and we were talking about he was talking about Monk Road up near.
Oh, that was beautiful.
And just how much like nature inspired him, and we ended up talking about war and just how like the contrast between these two, right? And like so we started to discuss like what peace meant to us, and when you look at like peace, you think of a peaceful place. And so I had these questions for Arne, but I never got to ask him. Outright. I gave him the questions, and he gave me back some drawings and a poem, and they kind of related, but it was like I would like to have dug into this a little bit deeper with him. So he said, so before reading any further, take a moment to close your eyes and imagine your own peaceful place. Now, with this place in mind, ask yourself these following questions. What does it look like? What does it sound, feel, and smell like? Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? How do you feel? Do you want to fight, kill, or destroy? Or why would you? So, like, Arne, it was just like when we talk about these things, it was like, why are we putting ourselves through this? Why is humanity putting ourselves through these same things over and over again? Why are we electing, totalitarian leaders, or whatever you want to call them? Like, what is it?
These particular lines would make for a very good workshop, I think.
Yeah, almost a meditation.
Absolutely, a meditation, but also a very good workshop in the sense of, let's plan something around this and close our eyes, think about these questions, and then discuss them later, that kind of thing. But that's also one bit that which resonates there. He wrote this, no sunny peace can wash away the imprint of horror of the incessant bombing. My soul is crying for no more war, but the porridge is too thick to swallow.
That's
and in a way, that answers some of those.
I was going to say for Arne, it was always a sunny day. Right? It was always a sunny day, no matter how bad things got. It's like and that's something he told me was like with the stories, like some of the horrific things that he witnessed. He said when he thinks back on them, he remembers them as being a sunny, beautiful day. And he said whether it really was a sunny, beautiful day or not, he said he couldn't remember. He said, but that's in his mind. That helps him get past it in a sense. It's
a coping mechanism.
It's a coping.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And which is what I love about this one quote at the back of the book here is that I had to have it on a sunny day. On the worst days, the sun had to shine, or else I wouldn't have been able to live through it.
Yeah.
And so that was his coping mechanism, his way of dealing, his body triggering a mechanism in his own mind.
And his art too was I think a coping mechanism. He talks, and I asked him because I saw his drawings, like these. He was telling me a story about how his teacher in Schwerin, Harawak.
Oh yeah.
Harawak. He literally would, like at the end of every class, would beat them with a cane, and it was like because Arne was un-German, they called him un-German because he was Estonian. child refugee, the kids would call him a foreigner, they'd make fun, and but then when he was drawing, they'd all kind of circle around and be like, oh, the foreigner can really draw, and it was like this, like almost like a shield, right? He said like it was it was something that they admired, even though they were bullying him, and that I think was a protection of sorts. Right?
Yes, I think that probably drew back something when he, while he was living in Coe Hill, Ontario. I wasn't not long after he moved there, and he had to go to the grocery store to buy some groceries, and there was some people sitting around talking about, oh, these effing immigrants, this, effing immigrants that, excuse my, but that's basically what they were saying without saying the word. And he was listening to all this, and he had his groceries ready to, and he basically just said, okay, that's it. So in front of them all, he said, well, this effing immigrant would like to pay for his groceries, please. And then he told me there was just silence. That whole thing, like we were saying, it resurfaces time and time again.
Yeah. Oh, it's like we're seeing with displaced people, right? Like we're seeing all around the world, like people that more and more refugees and people being forced out of their homes and where they live. Just and as we were writing the book, it's like we were, so many things happened. Like in the like the author's note, which turned into the first kind of chapter because it got rewritten so many times. It was like there was always something major happening in the news. Like when you think of between December 2019 until last November when the book actually came out, and we added things right up until the end, trying to keep it as up to date as possible. You think about everything that went down, right? Like we saw these, the insurrection in the States. We saw the beginning of the war in all Palestine and in Ukraine, and we saw these like people being forced out of their homes and living in camps, and like we see this all the time, but we to the point where we actually kind of get numb to it. But then, as we were writing this book, it's like I was paying attention to the statistics, and that's when it really hit me. It's like we're all the notes Arne had gave me in these magazines and on little scraps of paper. It's like another 236 people killed by the climate crisis, in like a major flood in I think it was in India, and then or Pakistan, and and then he was there's another 2,000 people killed in Palestine, or there's the attack on October 7th, where all of these major things where it's like it's too much for, and like if we sit and we dwell on them all, then we don't have sunny days because it's so overwhelmingly depressing. But it's good to the thing with the book. It's like in this first chapter, it's like I tried to lay out as many of them as I could, and then even now I look back and I go, I should have added this and this and this. But the chapter would have gone on. It would have been 300 pages on its own. Right?
There's a lot in that first chapter that puts the book into context completely, not just because of what's happened in the present, but how it relates to going into Dan's own past, and even how war itself is an environmental catastrophe, not just on a human level, but also on the level of how it alters a landscape completely, and the geography of a place, and how it poisons places, not just through what it does, but also physically, geographically.
It's like I recall like as we were writing this, like Arne telling me about his trip through Hamburg after the war, and seeing all the ruins and the rubble and the chimneys standing up, like all there was chimneys and rubble, and he was telling me this story, and then I said, I just saw images like this the other day, and they were there was images of Ukraine and in Gaza, and that's what it was the chimneys standing up, and he's like, for some reason that's all that remained, And it's one of these moments where past and present collide, right? And I think like, Arne always said, oh, I want to live to 102. I want to see how this plays out. And it's like the way it's going, it's like, well, I don't know if it's going to be resolved in this amount of time, but it's up to us to resolve it, right? Like it's up to us to pay attention and not ignore it, not dwell on it, still enjoy our sunny days, but then, be aware of what's happening. And that was something Arne was always, he would end up often, in the book, what are we going to do about this, Nate? It was so like we had to solve all the problems that we were talking about, and it was like, but he always gave me that hope where it was like, yeah, you know what, by talking about it, we kind of are starting to do something, right? Like it's that first step where we realize that we're repeating the same mistakes, and no one really wins when we fight wars. Like in the end, everybody loses.
I was thinking how the book itself, I think, presents a very kind of candid view without sugarcoating anything at all. It's very in your face a lot of the time. And I'm just wondering, do you feel, hearing my dad's stories and writing them down, that you've captured his own candor in relation to your own journalism as well?
Oh,
when you write about other things?
Yeah.
Out with the book itself?
I can still hear his voice.
Yeah.
Well, Nate. He said,
No.
Yeah. What do you think of this? And then he throws something at me across the table, right? It's like, and I think it made me want to dig deeper as a journalist. It made me want to, it's small town, most of the reporting up in Bancroft, pretty fluffy stuff, not a lot to, there's always something, you can always find angles and interesting stories, but that's not really what the industry wants, right? In small town, like local media, it's usually pretty fluffy. So we tried to counter that as much as possible with as much truth as we can. It would get us in trouble, and in the book, I had a lot of hate mail personally, and death threats and everything as a journalist in a small town. So I shared these with Arne, and he was just couldn't believe it, right? But then we saw during the process of writing the book, we saw first the insurrection in the States, then the convoy in Ottawa, and very similar crowds, very similar energy to those same people that
he phoned me one afternoon during the time of the convoy because they had all those F. Trudeau signs out all over Cole Hill.
Yeah.
And he actually said to me that afternoon, he said, I feel like I'm living back in Nazi Germany again.
Yeah. And it's the amount of, not to, it's everywhere, right? I see those signs in St. Catharines, Toronto, and it's that hate it's unfortunately making a comeback, and he could see it, and we can all see it. You can't ignore it. It's there, and but I think it's like we've allowed it to be normalized in a way, like where it's now just part of what craziness am I going to wake up to today? Is it like Venezuela or Iran or what's going to happen? And it's stressful, right? It's not a way to, that's why I read that meditation or those questions earlier.
That's a good one, yeah.
Because it's why are we doing it? Why are we allowing this to go on? When it's who does it benefit? Right? It doesn't benefit us. It doesn't I don't think anyone in this room benefits from these wars. And there may be a handful of billionaires that are really enjoying what's going on, and what did Trump say? It's the golden. When I heard him say it's the golden age of America the other night, I thought of Arne, because I could hear Arne kind of mimicking him in his voice. Oh, the golden age,
The new Domo Aria,
yeah.
golden room, golden palace.
Yeah. So it's I think it's a matter of realizing that we can't allow it to be normalized. We have to call it out. We see like, how is it possible that we have this, you know? And it's something that infuriated Arne, because like in the book, it's like, we thought, oh, it was just going to be outdated, because we're talking in the book and we're like, well, no one's going to want to read this. Like, half of it's about, you know, talking about American politics and how it mingles with his story, Arne's story, and then by the time it's out, Trump's going to be history. He's not going to get in again, and it's not going to, but it's worse. And he did, right? It's like, so, it's like, and I remember going to Arne's after the recent election last year, and the two of us just sat there kind of looking at each other like, did that just happen? Like,
I think we all did a lot of that.
Yeah. But his story, I think it's like the reason, in the beginning it was just a memoir. In the beginning, after we started like, once I realized this was a book about Arne, it turned out to be a memoir. So, but then as we got into it, then we realized that this isn't like necessarily just about the past, it's also about the present. It's not about who Arne was, it's about who Arne is. And who he is someone who cared deeply about other people, about the environment, about animals, about community. And that was something which I think it could be told in the past, but that's, to share it in the present was just a very special experience, because he had so much wisdom to share. He's just a generous person and spirit, and just a kind yet beautiful man in all ways. So.
Yeah, it's like we were saying earlier, you know, how these experiences end up resurfacing, you know, when we begin drawing parallels with our past experiences in relation to what's going on in present day events. And I don't know, I feel like you and Arne have successfully done this with a lot of great clarity and candor on a personal as well as on a global scale. And I think that I think it is timely, because it's one that I feel that so many people from so many different cultures will be able to get something from it, be able to pick out, be able to relate to it, because there's things in here that are on a personal as well as a universal connection, you know, within these pages. And I just feel that it holds a message for everybody. And, you know, it's not just in that sense, it's not Arne's story, but it's all of our stories, because with a lot of us who have come from immigrant families or who've been displaced, and hear stories from all our parents or grandparents and what they went through, either staying over there or coming here or going to other countries as the diaspora. There is a message for everybody there.
No, I definitely think so, and purposefully, like one of the things Arne said is that he wanted the book to be multi-language. So he wanted like as many words from as many different languages as we could find in there, because he wanted it to challenge people. He wanted it to connect people, and like so by doing that, he saw this even just a little thing. He could work your .com machine and translate that for me. You know, and he'd say, so. You know, there'd be a word, he'd give me a word, he's like, oh, is this the right, look up the spelling for me, make sure I got it right, and you know, it's, so it was this real, like, it was, you know, and then it's also intergenerational, right? Like this friendship, it's like, it was, you know, he'd been around, like, he's roughly double my age, right? So when we were talking, it's like he had all of this wisdom and to share, and then like, you know, I think my perspective as a journalist working today, and I felt like, you know, there was this connection where it's like, I think we could see a little bit of each other in each other, because it was just something I can't explain. Like I hadn't met anybody like that before. Yeah, I'm really privileged to have that experience. I saw the warning. Do we want to open this up for questions?
Yes, I think that's a really good note to end on.
Yeah. Is there anything else?
No. I'm. If I could perhaps just do one reading of something that he wrote, which is very beautiful. It is the. no spoilers here. It isn't a spoiler, but it is the epilogue. And it's something that I feel would be a nice final song. A wingless angel, an angel nevertheless, hovering in my dreamscape of miserable years in DP camps, of bread and no butter, pea soup, corn soup, no soup, malnourished body, carrying pimples and itchy armpits, then leaving the classic liberators behind in the devastated Germany, their field of conquest. Meanwhile, my angel had grown wings, transformed into the maid of Hange, and however neutral Sveada. And then, oh Canada, the restless settles, his wings defeathered, the mind at rest. Tears of sunshine, dew, fully keeping green. Green and flowers growing in many a grave, love given and much received, held in an angel's arms. And you can open the floor with that.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about the book or want to know more?
I just want to say...
I will come with a mic because we are filming that then. Because they're recording.
I just want to say, Nate, thank you for being inspired by a refugee Estonian. I've sat with Arne myself, and you are literally in his court. He was not only an accomplished artist, but he was a very wise sage.
Yes.
He was a legend in Northern Ontario. And I'm very impressed, and I'm a deep bow to you to be able to bring his life story into print. And for that, I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. We had so much content. We'd actually started a second project, so we and it will come out. It will, yeah. So.
Thank you. Nate, on that note, just what you just said, I was actually going to ask a question about that. I actually came up in November for the book launch of Arne and your talk, your talk, and which is wonderful. It's last time I saw Arne actually, and you said at that point, and Arne did as well, that you were working on the second project, which might have been a second book, and I think you mentioned that you cut out a lot of things from this book, and that there wasn't like enough to make a second book. So
yeah,
what's the word on that?
Yeah. Well, you know, we were hoping to have it done sooner than later, but it's primarily focused on, like, we're looking at more like environmental issues. Like we were in Arne's, we had so much of his work that we weren't able to use in this book, and a lot of it was of like wildlife drawings and paintings and images of landscapes in northern and across Canada and the world, around the world. Actually, there's beautiful drawings from Tallinn and all these historic places. So like we're looking at making it like this. The idea was to like make it. Well, we said less political, and we were going to try to do that. But the two of us, like the conversations I've gone through from that from this project, they do always wander into the political. But we're going to, I'd like to have this released next fall. So that's the goal. So if you, there'll be an email. Studio Dreamshare is the publisher we've been working with, and we would announce it through them, or I can give you emails if you want to connect that way. So, yeah. So, beautiful though. It's incredible. Like Arne's work, like when I go to his house and I think, okay, I've seen every piece of art in this house 100 times, 1,000 times. And he'd pull out this like chest from like under a table, and there'd be another couple hundred drawings and paintings in this that I'd never seen before. And he did that to me, I think, 3 times. And so there's this, just this abundance of work which is like still out there that, that maybe hasn't been seen in a long time. Some of it's never been seen.
No, some of it's not been seen.
Never been seen. So it's like
I found loads.
Yeah.
I found a lot that I think just sort of pile into one big blank box that still needs to be sorted.
Yeah, and we photographed a lot. We photographed a couple hundred of them. It's incredible. Like it really is like inspiring to see. And like I was a working artist for several years, and I had kind of given, as journalism, you kind of tap your creative energy. And he's inspired me to get back into painting and into drawing, and just it's as a meditation, but then also as like another way to use your voice, right?
It's funny, while I was putting all these things together last month, I came across, about nature, I came across a piece of paper. It was all torn around the edges, and it was just a scrap piece of paper upon which he had drawn all these very, very tiny little chickadees in different configurations. And I thought, okay, that's coming home with me. I have to put this in a frame. It was just such a darling little thing. It's very small, just a little pencil sketch, nothing more. And really, really touched my heart. Yeah.
It's we were looking. I do wildlife photography as well, and like some of it, my photographs were like very similar to his paintings and drawings. So we were looking at a contrast between that and the book as well, just to tell a story about like the North, because like everyone up north, like I said, he is a legend, and a lot of his inspiration came from that natural beauty.
We live in complicated times. A question to you both is what brings you hope in these times?
Sorry, can you say
what brings you hope?
What brings us hope? That's a good question. That's
it's going to be challenging if you don't have an answer.
Yeah, it's very challenging. It is. It's like I would say there's not a lot of reasons. There's not a lot of things I would say that give me hope. Arne was one of them. Arne was like, I still hear his voice. I can, sometimes I'll like, just talk to myself as if I'm talking to him about something I see in the news, like, and it's like, when I woke up the one morning and like, I found out about what happened in Venezuela, I just thought, wow, Arne, like, this would be something which Arne would be fired up. This is easy, a 5 or 6 hour conversation here, and it's like that type of energy. I think when people use their voice and other people hear it, that gives me hope. I think like we live in a social media kind of world now, right? And like a lot of our communication and our interaction is through these like .coms, and it's nice and it's good, and it helped get people in seats, and it's good I find it's a great business tool. But in terms of actually building networks, I think we need to move back more towards like face to face, like this type of event, like where you get to know each other and you talk and you answer questions and you hard truths, like we said in the beginning, like facing these hard truths. So when we do that and we see people like with the courage to do that, to me that gives me hope. Certain when people stand up to tyranny, I think that gives me hope.
Like Spain gives me hope. Standing up to bullies people who stand up to bullies gives me hope. I was bullied when I was a child, so I've been on the receiving end of being bullied. So I'm seeing it from a smaller perspective into something that's a little bit larger, but also I think what really gives me hope is that as long as we can connect with one another through compassion, kindness, and love, and as long as we aren't afraid to do that, that's what gives me hope. And I think that we have a lot more of that in the world than we do of the little people that don't provide us with any hope at all.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to say a few words about when the Roosman family and all the rest of the people that were able to leave their occupied countries and go to Germany, and the Roosman family, how many were there in your family?
In Arne's family, there were 8 because there were 9 because there were 7 children and dad and grandmother and father and I think so.
Well, there were at least seven children, right?
Yes, 7 children altogether. Yeah.
So can you imagine?
3 boys,
they had
4
lots
girls.
of fun. They were all pre-teenage, I think, most of them.
Yes, they were.
And the ammunition that was left behind by the soldiers and the people were moving from here to there. And they had so much, I mean, they had fun. Mind you, it was a very serious situation. But for young people at that age, they were just, and then, but there were accidents. A couple of boys lost a few fingers because they didn't know how to take care. And but what I wanted to say was the DP camp was divided up. Half stayed in one camp, and one camp what they called Oxford camp, and the other half was sent to another camp. And one of the camps was very musical, where the Roosmans were in, and they did not want to be they did not want to be taken over to another camp. And
they were in Oxford.
They were in Oxford camp, yeah. And so some of the boys went down to the railway station during the night and removed the piano. The piano was supposed to go too to the other camp, and they removed the piano. Can you imagine them removing a big piano from a train, so that they didn't want the piano to go to the other camp? So they removed the piano, and when it was leaving next morning, all the Roosmans were standing there and singing Alte Kameraden. They were sending off the others. So it was sort of and then they didn't meet again till then they went to Sweden, right?
That's yeah. There you go, that's resistance for you, eh?
Yeah, that's where they went to Sweden. And Sweden, because they had some distant relatives. If you had some distant relatives, Swedish relatives, you were allowed to, you were accepted.
Grandmother, my father's mother, she, I found her documents the other day. They're stating her Swedish heritage.
That's right.
On Helle Bösberg's side of the family.
Yeah. So they were all.
So they were able to get naturalized.
And from Sweden they came. Most of them came to Canada. A lot of them went back to Sweden, right?
No. Only 2 sisters came to Canada.
Even the grandparents came.
My grandparents came, like Arne's mother and father came, and
they went back.
the rest stayed. The rest stayed in Sweden.
Thank you. Oh, did you want to say something?
A question. Maybe it's in your book, Nate, but how did you meet Arne, and when, and what kind of prompted the relationship?
Yeah. We met in, I think it was 2014, and it was an art show. It was one of his, what was the name of the show right now? Drawing a blank. So it was a show with some of the drawings from one of his novella books, and I had gone there to cover it, and we started chatting during the show, and let's make plans to get together in a week or two, and I ended up going to his house on the York River, and he gave me a tour of his studio gallery, and it was like I was just blown away, like the amount of artwork in his home. Like this was the 2-story home on the river in Bancroft, and we walked through the house, and it was just like every surface had stacks of drawings and paintings, and I was looking at them, and I knew nothing about Arne except that he was an amazing artist from the shows and the work I'd seen at the gallery. So I didn't really know anything about his history, and like I just was fascinated looking at the images, because there's men on horseback with swords, and there's like a plane coming down, and these like 3 kids rolling barrels towards like towards like the
That's
Soviet
no
tanks.
spoilers, no
That's,
spoilers.
yeah, it's like there's like, so, and we used some of the drawings in that and from that encounter, but we met, and then like Arne would often send in letters to the editor when I was working at the paper there. He would contact me, often just to talk about an article or something. And as we, it was in 2019 is when the friendship really started to grow. He invited me over, and it was just the two of us. We sat down, we had a little too much to drink, and we just kept talking, and then from there on, it was like a weekly visit, sometimes more than once a week. And so lots of, it was nice living only 20 minutes away from him, where we could spend a lot of time together. It's like he really, like, in the beginning, like it was something. It opened my eyes because, like I said in the start of this talk, like I meet a lot of people as a journalist, but very seldom do you get deeper. Do you get past that first introduction and that, like, where you tell the story. You tell the story they want to be told, or that should be told, with their input in it, and and then you move on to the next one. Whereas with Arne, it just felt like I was always going to see him again because I just needed to. There was more I wanted to know. There was more I like, and it was just his company was like, it was how would I describe it? Like it's like he just had this thing where it was like you wanted to know him deeper. The more you talked to him, the more reasons you found to keep talking. For Arne, it was we had a lot of good time. Went on some adventures together. When he could still drive, he came over to my house, and he brought over, I remember, a big jug of, this was before the book, but he had made like homemade mead from some ancient recipe he'd gotten somewhere. He couldn't remember, but so we're sitting in the driveway drinking this homemade alcohol that he said, they would make something like this in the Oxford can. He said, right? And it was like, it was delicious, actually. But I'd never met anyone like him.
The Swedish potato juice.
Yeah. He said he had cornered the black market in the Oxford camp, is what he told me, especially his brother Benny. But
Benny was good at that.
Yeah.
He was the wheeler dealer. He was the spiv.
Yeah.
It's what we call in the UK the spiv, the guy with a pinstripe suit going around saying, right, got some of this stuff, black marketeer.
That's what, he said it was the kingpin of the black market in Oxford. But he really opened my eyes, because like we've talked a lot about war, and like as someone who, we've kind of, in my generation, we've grown up with war from a distance, though, for the most part, right? You see it on television, you read it in the news. But we don't really experience it. And speaking with Arne, it was like it made me appreciate the resilience of people during wartime. It made me pay a little bit closer attention to the numbers, right, and how each number has a name. So like when you see a statistic, no matter like casualties or injuries or whatever, it's like there's a whole life behind that number, and we glaze over them so easily. And something that is in the book, but there's like this one that's kind of like a small section. It's like snapshots of Unhumans, and like it made me realize like how terrifying war must be. Like even though when I asked Arne about it, he said I was a kid. He's like, I would try to have fun as best I could. It's like I wasn't scared. I was scared a few. He said he was scared a few times, but
he was scared.
But he said he tried to make fun of everything. As a kid, that's what you do. And but the one story, he said there was this photos, and he was showing me some of his photos in his piano bench, and there were these photos, and all the faces were scratched off of the people in the photos. And I said, "What are these, like ex-girlfriends, or what's going on here?" And he said no. He says this was the photo. He says it was like a passport of sorts. He says my parents would carry it with them, and when they were when they were traveling from Estonia, from Tallinn to Germany, if they were stopped by Germans, they would tell them, "Oh, these were these were Russians, friends of the family. We don't want to associate with them anymore, so we scratched them out. We don't want them in our photo album. And then if they got stopped by the Nazis, if they got stopped by the Russians, they would say, "Oh, these were Nazis. These are Nazis. We don't want them in our photo album." So
That's
it was.
a custom that dates back millennia. I mean, in ancient Egypt, they used to scratch out Queen Hatshepsut's face because she was a female, and females weren't supposed to be pharaohs. And in Rome, they scratched out Nero's face, Gaeta's face, because these were people who were like bad emperors, and it was a form. It's called damnatio memoriae, damn their memory.
But it wasn't to damn these
No,
people, right?
but it was to
yeah.
erase. But it is to erase identity, and that's the same thing. You know, you're erasing the identity so nobody knows who they are anymore.
Yeah. It was kind of like a disguise, is how he
Yeah,
described
in a way, yeah.
It was like it was because like whoever so it wasn't about having allegiance with the Russians or the Nazis. It was just staying alive, right? So and there's more stories with Axel in there too, like where the things he had to do to stay alive in Italy.
In Italy,
it really is incredible. Like when you see the amount the family went through. And then how I think about like with Arne, it's like he could have been such a negative person. He could have been like just sour. He had a lot of reasons.
Turned him into a real cynic.
But it turned him into just a really beautiful person that actually cared about others. So, if no one else.
We can't see any questions from the audience here. I have a question. Did you ever discuss translating the book into Estonian?
Yeah.
We've discussed it already. We've thought about Estonian and Swedish as well because I have family in Sweden. Oh, right, sorry. We have discussed about translating it into Estonian and also finding someone who can translate it into Swedish because I have cousins in Sweden and relatives in Sweden, especially my cousin Magnus Roosman, who's a very well-known actor in Sweden, and he does a lot of talking books. And I'm sending him a copy because it would be a gift from his partner to him, and it would be lovely if he could do a talking book even in English. My father's nephew doing a version of this would be so lovely. So yeah, we're looking into that. We're going to see how we can work this one out.
Because I think it's really important that kind of books reach also Estonia.
Absolutely.
I see like every year that kind of books coming out. We have this writers club. Mackay is part of that and writing great stories. And Estonians in Estonia, they know already more. We used to know, but still there is not enough information about the diaspora Estonians' fates. And especially, I haven't read the book, but what I hear is like it's so much connected to our like current historical happening, everything that happens here. So I'm sure it would be interested. People in Estonia would be interested to read the book.
All we'll be looking for is an Estonian writer who is working in both languages to do that, to volunteer to do that would be great. Whether it's here or whether it's in Esi.
Yeah, maybe we can help you to find someone.
That would be
excellent. Yeah, if we could. I think it's important that it's in Arne's native language. I think the book should be because it's like we try to include as much about Estonia in the book as we could, and then it's like to have it in that language would be beautiful. So if you do know what
especially knowing that he published his first book in both languages, right? So it was for him very important so that message gets out to different groups of audiences. Wonderful. So looking forward to reading the book here. Enjoy the art. And there is a message from Rebecca that this wasn't a celebration of Arne's life here today, but they are planning something for the end of August or the beginning of September, or maybe
Yeah,
can you tell more about it?
Neil and myself, my husband Neil, he wasn't able to come at this point with me, but we're planning to do a celebration of life in better weather, and we figured up in Bancroft when there's not so many bugs. End of August, early September it looks like a good time. And I'm also thinking for the Estonian community here in Toronto to see if we could maybe do one in Toronto as well. We'll be in contact about that. We'll be in touch with that. But also, this gives me some time, first of all, to complete working on things dealing with his estate on sort of more of a virtual basis, remotely right now, as well as give myself some time to overcome what's happened, if that ever and it will give me some time to plan a very, very special event for him. I'm in a position where when it comes to loss, within the last 10 years, I've lost my entire family. So it's hard to be alone and work through all this when I haven't even processed the first one yet. But thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for all your support, and hopefully we'll see you all in September also, or August, whichever will be, but we'll definitely let everyone know. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thanks for hosting us. Oh, we'll be in touch.